Okay, very good evening, everyone. I'm Carol, Kilo Papa 4 Mike Delta, Vice President of the River City ARCS. And I apologize for this meeting being on Zoom instead of in person, but there was some confusion as to the reservation of our meeting room for tonight, so we don't have it available. And I think maybe we should start just with introductions of everybody who's on. Let me go down the list here and you see we've got already 18 people here. And why don't we start with our officers? How about you, Gert?
Okay. I am Kilo 6 Zulu Golf Alpha, Bert, and I'm the club secretary.
Okay, thank you. How about you, Wilson?
Oh, good evening, everybody. It's Wilson Head, and I'm your treasurer. November 6th, Echo Mike Foxtrot. Good evening. Thank you. Carol, back to you.
Okay, how about James?
Good evening. I'm a board member at large for the club, Alpha Echo 6 Juliet Golf.
Thank you. Let's see, how about Jay and 6SAC?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Jay, November 6th, Sierra Alpha Charlie, special guest star for tonight for ARES. I'm the emergency coordinator for Sacramento County.
Thank you. How about Nelson, K6VDU?
Good evening, everyone. Nelson Minya here, Kilo 6 Victor Delta uniform. Just a member. I'm interested to hear what's going to be presented tonight.
Okay, thank you. How about, see, Andy, W6WWR?
Good evening. I believe I'm still a member. I don't think I've ever attended any meetings, but when I heard that such a superstar was going to be speaking tonight, I wanted to come on and hear what was going to be said.
Thank you. Carl, N6CKV.
Good evening, everybody. Carl, N6CKV, District 3 Emergency Coordinator.
Thank you. Dan, KF6HHH.
Good evening, everybody. KF6 Triple H, Dan in Woodland, Yolo County ARES AEC. I just got the email on the meeting and thought I'd.
Thank you. How about Osatama? Okay, I don't think Osatama's hearing me. Or
I couldn't get my mic off of mute, but
there you go.
Tama and Michelle is with me. What's your call number?
KN6WXR.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Very good. How about Mike, K7GFM?
Good evening, everyone. Mike, K7GFM. I'm in Rainier, Washington at the moment.
Hey, cool.
Thank you for the DX check-in. John, the Whiskey 3 India Victor.
Hi, Carol, and everybody here in the meeting. I'm John Cleveland, W3IV. I'm a Sac County ARES member as well as the California Department of Technology Radio Association trustee. And I'm also a Jay Ballinger groupie, so that's why I'm here tonight.
Thank you for joining us. How about Kishore, KR6RAO? No sound. Okay, you have no audio, Kishore.
Yeah. Unmute.
He is unmuted. I think his mic is just not connected, perhaps.
Okay, can you
there
hear me
you
now?
go. Yes, yes.
Okay, so I had to get my second earbud in. Yeah, good evening, everyone. This is Kishore, Kilo Romeo 6 Romeo Alpha Oscar. Great to be here, and thanks for setting up this meeting.
Thank you. Sylvia, Kilo Sierra 6 Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Whoops, sorry. We'll come back to you. I think I see you're eating. Ken Martin, K6RMN. You have to unmute, Ken.
Sorry, this is Ken, KE6RMN.
Okay, thank you. newsletter. He's our newsletter editor also. Bill, and November 6 Hotel Alpha. Unmute.
Oh, there we are. Hi, yeah, it's Bill, November 6 Hotel Alpha in Roseville, California.
Thank you. Jeff, Kilo November 6 Zulu Zulu Juliet. Unmute. You're muted.
I'm a pretty new member. This is my first meeting I'm attending. I went to the library, but I didn't see the email until I got there. So I'm driving home.
Okay, sorry about that. But thank you for joining us here. John, Kilo India 6 Romeo Tango.
Hi, this is John, KI6RT. Very interested in the topic tonight.
Very
I've
good.
been a member of the club for a long time, but I don't attend many meetings.
Thank you, John, for being with us tonight. Jim, Kilo Foxtrot 6 Juliet Foxtrot. You're muted. How'd they go?
This is Jim in Roseville. Kilo Foxtrot 6, Juliet Foxtrot. I was also at the library and just made it home in time to get on Zoom.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks for joining us, and I apologize for this again.
No
Jim,
worries.
Kilo Foxtrot 6 Juliet. Oh, that's okay. You already did. You right. They're shuffling around here. Bill, November 6 Echo Foxtrot.
Good evening, everybody. Bill, November 6 Echo Foxtrot from Elk Grove.
Thank you, Bill. Whiskey Alpha 6 Lima X-Ray Delta. And no sound, you're muted. Okay, let's try Daryl. Kilo Mike 6 Kilo Foxtrot Whiskey.
Good evening. This is Daryl in Woodland, KM6 KFW.
Okay, thank you, Daryl. And there's another person there, MH Reed, R-E-I-D. Don't have your call sign. And you're muted. You're not talking. Okay, let's go back here to Sylvia, Kilo Sierra 6 Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. You're muted. You have no way to unmute. Okay, can't read lips. Okay, well, let's go on with the meeting or just reports to start with, and then we'll go straight to our speaker. First, let's go to Wilson, who is our treasurer and membership chair. And you can share your screen and give us your report, please, Wilson. Yeah, and you're muted.
My screen went haywire on me, but I think I'm sharing and you can hear me. If someone give me a thumbs up, I'll keep going. Hear me? Yeah? Do I have audio?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got you.
Okay.
We can see you.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate
you
that. I'm feeling rusty, but I can jump right into it. It seems like I haven't handled any club business in several days, so I prepared this River City Amateur Radio Communication Society Treasurer's Report. I prepared it for our board meeting that we had on July 23rd. So haven't done much since then other than have some conversations, but tonight is our general membership meeting, August 13th. So you can see that's been some time. And I'm going to first give a membership status report based on the tool that we use, Ham Club Online, the www.hamclubonline.com. And before I get into it, I just want to give a quick plug for it that we should be using it to the fullest extent if we can. It's a portal where we can check in and check our membership status, make membership payments, inquiries, and just look for general communication out of that platform. So if you have any questions, I'm Wilson Head, N6EMF, your treasurer and membership chair. You can check in with me directly. I'll either help you firsthand or get someone to help me help you. And so first off, we had 2 new members in the period of this report, which was basically from the end of June to the end of to the end of July. We had Robert KI6MOL and Jim Nunez N6UEU. So I want to welcome both Robert and Jim to the club. I hope to get acquainted with you. And if I haven't already, I think I already sent out your membership welcome package email, and I'll have to double check to make sure that went out. And but if you're looking for that and you haven't received it, please contact me at n6emf@arrl.org. Or is it net, Carol? Anyway, you know how to reach folks at ARRL email addresses. That's how you can get a hold of me. So currently we have 4 membership types that are on record in Ham Club Online. If we have 133 general members, among those 42 are expiring soon. And we have 17 family memberships, 11 life members, and currently 7 inactive members. The inactive members are folks that maybe haven't paid their dues in a long time, or for some reason, they're probably not going to be on the membership rolls very long if we don't square up their business. Any questions or comments before I go to the financial section? I'm wrapping up the membership status. All right. So for the financial report, let's see here. Here it is. And see if I can get it all to fit on one page. So the financial report is based on the reporting period of June 25th to August 23rd. I'm sorry, June 25th to July 23rd. And the Safe Credit Union balances started at $9,092. I'm not going to ring off the cents. The ending balance for that period was $98.67. And the month-over-month increase was $774. Our income for the period was we collected $80 in membership dues. We had $59 in repeater donations and $50 in door prize donations for a total income of $189. Also, let me kind of go back up to the repeater donations. I neglected to mention or express appreciation for the donors. We have David Mink and Larry Upjohn. They faithfully contribute to the repeater every month. So I appreciate you. Keep up the good spirit, keep up the good work around supporting our repeater. Thank you. So we have the general fund expenditures, back to the financial piece. I just kind of wanted to acknowledge that those donors. So thank you. The general fund expenditures, the field day expenses were $552. PayPal charges were $5. Most of the time, the PayPal charges are just for processing the membership dues payments that come through PayPal. And we have online services such as Ham Club Online and the Google website and Zoom, etc. That came in at $36 this month for total expenditures of about $652. And the repeater fund is currently closing out at $3202. And the general fund is about $6,138. So I do have some insurance business to take care of that's not listed here. I'm gonna got all the information I needed from Jen Garland, KI1TTY. She helped me out to get to the next step with insuring some of the club's assets. And we still have some other important business. I won't incriminate myself, but if anybody wants to talk about any of it, we can do that. But just want to let you know I haven't forgotten, but I've got some important filings to make around the club nonprofit status and some other things along those lines. So with that closes out my treasurer's report. Unless there are any comments or questions, I'd be glad to answer them. As I would say on the net, please come now. Thank you. Back to you, Carol.
Okay, very good. I also want to just welcome. We have some other people who have joined us here. We have Hank K6HUH, and I see Ken N6KEN has joined us also. And Bob Wold also has joined us here. And so right now we have a total of 27 people. Phil will not be with us tonight because unfortunately he's under the weather. He's caught a case of COVID, and he sends his regrets that he just doesn't feel up to checking in on Zoom. And Rick, KM6MZY, thank you also for joining us as well. And I see Dave, KK6MVJ. Any of you who have not yet checked in would like to introduce yourself, please go ahead at this time. Okay, I don't, okay, no takers, that's fine. Anyway, I do have a report here that I will share. This is the web resource report. And I'll share my screen here. Let's see. There we go. This is the web resource report for activity during the month of July. And of course, have a moment of silence in memory of Dave Martin, who passed away last month, WV6YLK. He was one of the, here he is with his wife, Marie, who's not yet licensed. Dave was one of the founding members of River City ARCS back in 1976. So he's been with our club for almost 50 years. And if anybody would like to make any comments about Dave, this is when he was awarded, he and Marie both were awarded the Lila Frank Award, Memorial Award in recognition of exceptional service to the club and the amateur radio community. And that was back in Sam's Hofbrau. If anybody would like to make any statements about Dave, we'll open the floor. You're welcome to go ahead and comment. Well, as soon as we hear about a memorial service, we will pass the word around so that you'll have the opportunity to participate in a celebration of life for Dave. And we send our sincere sympathy to Marie, who unfortunately was not she had actually showed up at the library to be at the in-person meeting, but she was not able to join us on Zoom because her computer is not working right now. Have to get that fixed. This is a reminder, our website is n6na.org. We try to keep this updated with all the latest information about the club and also ongoings in the amateur radio community. And here's an announcement for the next Hamfest that's coming up. That'll be the one up at McBean Park in Lincoln. This is the Western Placer Amateur Radio Club's Hamfest, which will be Saturday, September 21st, 2024, starting at 7, going up to around noontime. And these are fun activities to attend. I mean, people bring stuff to sell, and it's like a flea market, but also you get to see people face to face that you talk to on the air. There's going to be vendors there, high-tech liquidators. They're going to make the trip down here from where they are, I believe, up in Idaho. And they bring a nice display with all kinds of connectors and goodies for electronics that you can't get locally. So I'll be there working at the ARRL booth. So we'll look forward to seeing you there. And another big activity that's going to be going on again this year is the Maker Fair in Rockland. And there's going to be a special event station and an amateur radio exhibit there, Saturday, October 12th, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And this is going to be on the campus of Sierra College in Rockland. And this is an outreach to the public, and a lot of young people go to this. School-age kids, college kids, young adults, people of all ages. It's a real great family type of event. There's going to be food trucks and all sorts of different things that have to do with science, technology, engineering, math, and maker things, DIY. So Dave was with us last year, and we certainly going to miss his presence this year. We had participation from the North Hills Radio Club, as well as the Elk Grove Florin Amateur Radio Club and the River City ARCS last year, and we're looking forward to anybody would like to come and show off their amateur radio and the fun they have with it and their fascination with amateur radio. People would like to learn about that stuff. And if you have any stuff that you've done, do it yourself, this is an opportunity to show it as well. And if you want to attend this and be one of the exhibitors, please reach out to me. You can send me an email, kp4md@arrl.net. That's my email. And these are some upcoming events. We have quite a few things coming up here since the weather is cooling off a bit. A reminder that this Saturday, August 17th at 8:30, we're going to have the club breakfast at Brookfield's Restaurant on Madison Avenue. So looking forward to seeing you there, 8:30 a.m. And this is for not just members, but any family members or visitors, anybody who wants to join us. And we get together in the meeting room over there and have a great breakfast and just socialize. The next meeting, without question, we have the date fixed for that. It's going to be September 10th. And that's going to be our homebrew night. Let's see, White Elephant Night's going to be our meeting in October 8th. And the PacificCon convention, that's going to be at the San Ramon Marriott on October 18th to 20th. And the registration is open for that online. You can go to pacificon.org. And that is a really fun event where you can, this is a big event for everybody in the Pacific Division, which includes Northern California, Nevada, and then we have people from all over the Western United States who attend there. And we have all kinds of forums that so you can learn stuff about amateur radio, hands-on things like building kits. All kinds of vendors are going to be there. And there's going to be a banquet and all kinds of activities. And you should go to the website and see what they do there. If you're under 18, you can bring your kids. There's free admission. And if you're older, why the admission is only, I believe, $25. If you do it online before they close the online registration. If you wait to register at the door, I think it's a little more expensive, like $30 for the entire weekend. And it's and there are rooms available there at the Marriott Hotel if you want to stay there. Some people just make it a day trip, like go Saturday if you want to see the majority of the events that they have over there. ARRL is going to be there. We have people from headquarters going to be there as well in their exhibit. November, of course, is our club elections, and then December meeting is going to be our holiday dinner meeting, which is going to be at the Black Bear Diner on Madison Avenue. Contest for the month of October. Coming up this weekend is the North American QSO Party, single sideband. Also ARL Rookie Roundup Radio Teletype. The following weekend is the Hawaii, Kansas, Ohio QSO parties. And then the first weekend of September is the Tennessee QSO Party. And if you want to go to a website that shows listing of all of the contests coming up, you can go to contestcalendar.com. And it's very convenient there. Reminder also that our nets are Wednesday nights. So tomorrow night at 8 p.m. is our 2-meter net on 145.25. And that's available also through our Echolink. Then we have our 10-meter net at 8:30 p.m. And our slow scan TV net has been going strong now for since 2011, so 13 years. And that's going to be 9 p.m. Wednesday on a 441.30 repeater. And we live stream it on our YouTube channel as well. And the link for that is on our website. And a reminder also that the Roundtable Net is a very casual type of chat net that we have on Saturday afternoons at 3 p.m. And that's on 7181 lower sideband. And everyone's welcome to check in there. And just remember about our backup repeater. We have a backup repeater that we put on when our main repeater on the east side of the valley is offline for some reason. And that backup repeater has the same frequency pair, just has a different PL tone. It's 123.0. And we exercise this repeater every third Wednesday net. So it won't be this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, we'll be doing our net on the backup repeater. So we want to make sure our members have a memory channel program with the same frequency pair, but with 123 hertz as the PL tone. Website activity for July. We had a total of 785 page views during the month of July. And the peak page views were on July 10th. And the most visited web pages were the home page with 371 views, then the Nets page, field day page, about us page, and a repeater page. And most of our visits, 456 page views, were directed to us through a web search engine. 248 of the page views were direct hits to our n6na.org URL, and the rest were referred from social media and video pages. And again, most of our visitors are from the United States. We had a few from Puerto Rico, Pakistan, Netherlands, Taiwan. All of these countries that you see lit up in blue, we had some visitors to our website. The YouTube channel has a total of 518 subscribers. That went up 5 in the last month. We had a total of 725 video views. And this is just the most popular videos. I don't have to list those. Facebook page now has 1,119 followers. That went up 7. And the Twitter page has 169 followers. And we have a Discord chat with 40 members. And just a reminder, if you want to contact anyone among the officers or board of directors, any questions for the club, you can just direct it to contact@n6na.org, and we will get you an answer and direct it to the appropriate person. So I'm going to stop sharing. So do we have any questions about any of this? Of course, all of this is going to be up on YouTube because we're going to post this meeting on YouTube. If you want to go over any of those details, they'll be available. I think at this point, we could maybe go ahead and pass it on to our speaker. Jay?
Let me share the right screens. Zoom always likes to move everything around on you when you share your screen. So
yeah, we see it good.
Good. Also with Zoom, I do want to make this organic and take questions. I may not always see a hand raise in Zoom. So feel free to unmute yourself and just give it a shout. If there's a question or something comes up that you'd like to ask. Sorry, I'm still arranging windows here. And maybe Carol, if you could help, if you catch anybody or hear anybody, just, kind of like on a roundtable net, just shout your call sign out there, and we'll get to you all.
Yeah, I'll watch the chat window. If anybody wants to post a question in there, that's fine too.
That's also a good idea. Let me open that window. All right. Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. I am Jay Ballinger, November 6th Sierra Alpha Charlie. And I'm with our Sacramento County ARES team. And there's a lot of things that we talk about. Some of you might be very familiar, some kind of sort of familiar. So tonight's going to be a little bit of background info, discuss what we do and why we do it. Also, maybe compare and contrast us with maybe some other amateur radio teams that you might be familiar with. I do have an agenda, but I want to make sure I answer burning questions. If you have a question that you want to make sure that I answer, or a topic you want to make sure I cover tonight, go ahead and unmute yourself and just shout it out, and we'll see. We'll collect some of these.
Hey Jay, it's James, AE6JG. I'd be interested to know more about the relationship that FEMA has with ARES, the linkage.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thank you. Yeah, this part is easier in a room where people can just raise their hand. Yeah,
I have one. It's Wilson, N6EMF. Thanks for coming, Jay.
Sure.
First one is kind of silly. You said you wanted it to be organic. Do you have gluten-free?
Gluten-free, organic, all that good stuff. Yeah.
Well, I was just curiosity because I know nothing about this aspect of amateur radio whatsoever, but I was just wondering if there are any, I'm the treasurer, so I'm just curious, is there any financial stipends or considerations from local governments or federal government? Is there any financial, not really incentive, but defraying costs for these types of services?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. That is on the agenda. I will cover that. And James, I'm going to cover yours as well. So yeah, those are excellent.
Hey, Jay, this is Kishore, KR6RAO. The question is, how do the regional ARES teams work together? Like we have Sacramento County and there's other counties I know. I've heard them call into the nets, but how do we coordinate and work together?
Excellent question. We will cover that as well.
This is Dave, Kilo 6, Mike Victor Juliet. I've been following a lot of communications with regard to the training. And it seems like there's training all over the place instead of it being coordinated. And the interaction between local, state, federal agencies, the type of disasters, it seems like there's an awful lot of discrepancies. Here in California, we are fairly well organized, if you want to address those.
Sure. Yeah. And thank you. We will cover that one tonight. These are all great. And when I say I'm going to cover it, I do have answers, and those are part of the topics. If I don't answer it well enough, we'll have some time at the end that you can hold me accountable, make sure that I get the right answer for you. Those are great. Are there any more? Maybe a couple more before we dive in?
Hey, Jay, this is Bill, N6EF. I work for Sacramento County. I'm just curious. I work for DTEC in Sacramento County, telecom specifically. If ARES has any relationship with Sacramento County EOC or...
Excellent question. Yes. Yes, we will cover that as well.
Great. Thank you.
Well, you guys are writing my agenda for me. This is awesome.
I got one last question, Wilson, N6EMF. So what is there must be some technical like you leverage technical capabilities of a group, and not only that, but they're operating prowess, if you will. Does that all get developed in these groups?
Yeah, excellent question. We will touch on that as well. And now that I know you're interested, I'll dive a little deeper when I get to that topic. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Those are excellent. And I'm glad you're asking questions along those lines, because those are the kind of questions that kind of pop up sometimes inside the team, but also just when you're thinking about what ARES is, and when you take a half a second to say, how do they operate and get things done? So some of in addition to those questions that you just asked, and I've got, again, those are some slides and topics that I've got in this presentation. To add a little bit of structure, we will talk about ARRL. We'll define what ARES is and what ARES isn't. We'll talk about our relationship with RCARCS, because sometimes we're mentioned in the same breath. Training, because we had a couple of questions about that. Drills, and what some of our served agencies are, or memorandums of understanding, these MOUs that we have. And so that's just kind of a structure. We'll be able to take some more time into those as well. And if it feels like I'm getting ready to move on to another topic, and you have a question, same thing, just unmute yourself and shout right on out, and make sure that I can get that question answered for you. Because we're up to like 34 on the meeting so far, which is great. And so I don't want anybody to feel like have any mic fright, just feel free to unmute and jump right on out. Okay, so ARES. ARES is an acronym, and it stands for the Amateur Radio Emergency Service. And there's the URL there for the ARRL website, arrl.org/ARES. It's not the first incantation of such a program. There were previous versions that had different names, but this is the name that we've been going with for a long time now. Trivia question: how long has ARRL been around? Anybody want to shout out a year that it was started?
120.
120, almost. I think it was 1912-ish, 1914. Yeah, somebody's got, so Carol's got the 100-year thingy on there. Yeah, and so that was Max and Percy. It was in the teens, like 100 years ago, teens.
1914.
There you go, 1914. When those chaps got together back in Connecticut and said there ought to be a national association. And there's been some kind of an ARES-like emergency-like team since about the 1930s. It's not as well documented because there have been different names, kind of different structures and in different ways they've been organized. But as something that looks a lot like ARES has been around since the 1930s. So even ARES is coming up on 100 years-ish soon.
Jay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you, this is a trivia question. Are you aware of the reason the acronym ARES was chosen?
Well, we're going to cover that in just a little bit because there were previous versions, and we're going to compare and contrast with RCARCS in just a minute.
Sure.
So maybe we'll reveal that answer after we get to those slides. The logo that you see on this page here is kind of our mantra, right? When all else fails, amateur radio. And of course, I think that's the calling frequency that's on there for VHF. And that's exactly it. So we know this, but the rest of the world doesn't always remember and know that when the internet goes down, when the cell towers go down, our amateur radios still work. Okay, ARES is an ARRL field organization. That means ARRL provides the structure, the legitimacy, which is really important, and advocates for the inclusion in the regional emergency management with local governments, state governments, and the like. Having ARRL give us this structure is extremely important. There are other disaster reaction teams that even have radios out there in the world and the country. And you can form your own little club if you want to and kind of do the same thing. But when it comes time to knock on the door of, let's say, a government agency and say, we're here and we can help, having ARRL be the organization that gives us the structure, gives us the legitimacy as well. ARRL also negotiates a lot of these memorandums of understanding. I've got a list of that later on tonight. So it's important to know that the structure has been created from ARRL, and I'm gonna touch on the structure a few times. We'll talk about what an org chart looks like here in just a moment as well. But it is an ARRL field organization, which means there are some rules and guidelines, but there's plenty of flexibility to be able to craft the program for your area that makes the most sense for your area. And that'll also be a common theme I'll talk about tonight as we go through. All right, here's a good time to compare and contrast with RCARCS. So we are not called the Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Service because that's what RCARCS is. See, other names were Amateur Radio Emergency something or else. Anyway, there's been other acronyms as well, and Carol will give us the answer here in just a moment. But with RCARCS, it's important we're mentioned in the same breath, but we're very different for how you're activated. if RCARCS is ever activated, that is a very bad day. That means it is so bad that the president has suspended the amateur radio service and instead has replaced it with the RCARCS service. They use the amateur frequencies, they will use amateur equipment, but the RCARCS traffic is only for other RCARCS stations. So it's really the suspension of the amateur radio service and replaced with something much more strict. We share the same concept of a registered disaster worker, which is very, very important. So you can't just say, oh, I'm also a RCARCS station. No, you've got to register and be recognized as a RCARCS station. And usually that requires being a registered disaster worker. You actually take the oath, kind of like, you're taking office or joining the military kind of a thing. And it's kind of a big deal. Now, nobody here and nobody ever has actually had to live through this. So RCARCS was created right after World War II. So during World War II, the president did suspend amateur radio at the time. You weren't allowed to communicate on the amateur radio frequencies for fear of giving away secrets and giving away locations. And right, this is when radar was still being developed, and so there was a real fear that if there was a lot of radio traffic, that it could be used by enemies to find us or to snoop on us. So the amateur radio service was suspended. The federal government tried to spin up something like a RCARCS, like an ARES, and it was kind of a disaster. It was kind of a mess. It took them several months to even get the structure worked out. So after World War II, I think it was in the early 50s, they finally came up with this definition of the radio amateur civil emergency service, kind of like the Civil Air Patrol, right? If you're a pilot. And the idea is kind of the same, where you're a volunteer, you have certain skills that can't just be picked up overnight. You probably have some licensing that's involved that you would had to have done months or years before, where you can volunteer your expertise in a national disaster and a national emergency. So there are still RCARCS officers. The program is still defined. It is still practiced. There are RCARCS officers at all levels of local and state and national government, but it has never actually been implemented since it was defined back in the early 50s after World War II. So you'll hear RCARCS, you'll hear ARES in the same breath, but they are activated differently. What's nice about ARES is we don't necessarily need to have an official declaration to be able to be active and do what we do. And so it literally does not take an act of Congress to have an ARES team get spun up and do what we need to do. So Carol, let's not keep everybody in suspense anymore. What's the answer to your trivia question?
The trivia question, ARES, where did that come from? Because ARES is the name of the Greek god of war, and Mars is the Roman god of war. So some of you may be aware of the military affiliate radio system. That is a system where amateur radio operators, licensed amateurs, can sign up to do some volunteer work with Army or the Air Force. They don't have a Navy Mars anymore, but they operate on military frequencies outside of the ham bands to provide support services for military. And they're also kind of got an emergency kind of a mission to them as well right now. So ARES was, I'm pretty sure it was kind of like developed right around the same time, and that's the reason why they picked that name, and had something to do with military. I'm sure it was something towards the end of World War II, similar to RCARCS. What do you say about that, Jay?
That's very plausible, especially with Mars and right, ARES and Mars being related in nearly the same. For those of you, Carol gave a good description of Mars. They do have a couple of practices a year where they will be amateur radio adjacent, to kind of borrow a newish term. You can listen on their Mars frequency and then answer back on the amateur frequency, right? So you can listen to any frequency you want, just can't transmit on it. And those Mars stations, those military stations, are doing the same thing. They listen on the amateur frequency and answer on the Mars frequency. So you're working split, but the split is across services between amateur radio and the military network. And so that's kind of fun and interesting when they do that. They do that, I think, a couple of times a year. They'll have this Mars interoperability kind of a test. And the same thing with Mars. A lot of those folks are retired military, but they have been kind of registered as a Mars station. So from each of the military branches and the federal government branch of RCARCS, those are big deals when they get activated. ARES is more of the grassroots, local, and in our case, generally county oriented emergency radio teams that are ready to spring into action. All righty. There was a question earlier about, the technical stuff of what we do with ARES and all. So let's talk about what you have to do and what you have to have and what you have to be a member of ARES. ARES has a very specific list of requirements to be a member of ARES. That's it. You just need a valid amateur radio license. That is the only requirement to be a member of ARES. Now, you apply for membership with ARES teams wherever you happen to be located. Each ARES team may have their own onboarding process or vetting process, or add you to the team, but determine how they're going to use you and when to activate you. That can be from ARES team to ARES team decision. So here I'll talk about Sacramento a little bit versus the rest. Excuse me. And this kind of gets into that question about how do we interact with other ARES teams. ARES for Sacramento, we're right-sized for what Sacramento County needs, which is different than Placer County, different than El Dorado County, different than Los Angeles, different than Texas, different than Florida. Excuse me. And so I'll cover some of those similarities and differences as I go along as well. But there's really only one requirement, to have a valid amateur radio license and then be accepted on the team. And again, that onboarding process and how you get involved might be a little different from team to team. Let me take a quick break and describe what ARES is not, and I'll get back to more about the different titles and tiers inside of ARES. ARES is not a club. We sometimes smell like a club and feel like a club and might look like a club, but we don't. The facets of a club are generally maybe you've registered for a nonprofit, right? And so Wilson knows this because he's got to make sure the paperwork is freshened up for nonprofit because there's requirements for that. Not every club is a nonprofit though, but you can still register as a club. Generally, you need a board. You need to have governing documents for your club. You need to have a general meeting once a year, be able to vote on business stuff and have positions and terms, and many clubs charge dues so that you can fund the activities of your club. All of that is not ARES. ARES, we don't have any voting of officers. There are no dues involved. So the short answer to the financial question that was asked, no, there's no money given and there's no money directly raised or earned to be an ARES team. Now, there are some ARES teams that will do some of these things. I'll describe them later. But the ARES is just merely, I was going to say merely, that minimizes it. ARES is a collection of volunteers who bring their license, their equipment, and their training to bear when needed. So it's a collective. It's a collection of folks who have all gotten together to say, when we're needed, we're ready to help. And this is very important. I was talking about the Civil Air Patrol and RCARCS. And in an emergency, and it could be a small emergency, it could be a big emergency, big disaster or not, you can't really just take a warm body and hand them a radio, especially for the amateur frequencies, right? You need a license. You need to understand how they operate. You need to understand propagation. You need to understand how your transceivers work, what PL tones and offsets and working split and all this other stuff needs to, you need to know this, which is what a lot of the licensing is about, right? The test is about the math of frequencies, but it's also how to operate our equipment. And you can't just take a warm body and send them down in front of a radio necessarily and expect them to be proficient. So having volunteers who are already FCC licensed for the amateur bands, have them available and ready for emergencies, small and large, is a really big deal. And it's a selfless thing that all the ARES members a selfless act of volunteering to say, I can bring my equipment, I can bring my license, I can bring my expertise, and you can use me wherever I could be the most helpful, particularly when it comes to emergency communication. So ARES titles, let me get into the titles a bit, explain a bit more. I have the title of emergency coordinator, and that's really the only title that's defined when it comes to the ARES stuff. Is the person, and I'll put in air quotes here, in charge is the emergency coordinator. Now there's plenty of flexibility to appoint assistant coordinators and to appoint communication specialists and public information officers and website people and social media people and calendar keepers and all those other roles that you need for a well-functioning team. But really the only defined title is emergency coordinator. Any emergency coordinator is appointed by the section managers. So Carol had to review my qualifications. We had a conversation, and I serve at the will and pleasure of Carol. So she appointed me as the emergency coordinator for Sacramento County. And it stays that way until she appoints somebody else or I ask her to appoint somebody else. Now we have different levels of emergency coordinator. Every section has or is supposed to have an emergency coordinator. That's Mike. Is Michael on tonight? I didn't see
Michael Joseph. He's not here, but yeah, I didn't introduce myself. Also, I am this ARRL section manager for Sacramento Valley. So thank you for explaining that.
Yeah. So Carol has some administrative duties, being section manager, and one of them is appointing a number of positions, including on the ARES side, the emergency coordinator. So Michael Joseph, Kilo 6 Zulu Golf Bravo, he is our section emergency coordinator, and he is appointed by Carol as well. Now within each section, because the sections can be rather large, it can be an entire state, right, in other parts of the country. Here, the Sacramento Valley section geographically is very large from here all the way up to the Oregon border. So that'll get divided up. And in our case, we have some district emergency coordinators. We have Carl here. He said hi earlier tonight. He's the, for Sacramento, and this is arbitrary. Each section can divide up however they like to divide up. We here in Sacramento County are in district number 3 of the Sacramento Valley section for ARES. Again, that's kind of arbitrary. And he's the district emergency coordinator. And then generally, ECs are appointed down at the county level. It doesn't have to be. It could be even smaller. It could be down to cities. It could be more regional. It could be a couple of counties, just whatever makes sense for that section on how they want to divide up their amateur radio teams. Here in the Sacramento Valley, the counties work pretty well, but not always, right? We're pretty lucky in Sacramento. We're pretty homogeneous, but if you look at El Dorado County, you look at Placer County, you've got kind of valley people and mountain people. And so they've got a tougher time coordinating some of their activities because It's harder to get from one end of the county to the other. It's hard to communicate from one end of the county to the other as well, because they'll have mountains and stuff in the way. We are very, very, you guys picked the right spot to live here in the Central Valley, because we have foothills to the west of us and foothills to the east of us. And we even have an old volcano in the Sutter Buttes. And so between all of them, we got altitude for antennas, and that covers the entire valley. It's very, very cool. So these are important, that these are really the only titles. And then each ARES team can kind of self-organize and have assistant ECs and, like I said, all those other roles that you need for a team, and be able to prepare themselves the way they see best for serving their community. I had mentioned LA being a little bit different. LA's got, they're very tight with their ARES teams down there as well. And a lot of that is also geography. Once you get down to the LA basin, it's easy to communicate across that entire basin because of the antennas that are up on the hills. Texas is also very tightly integrated. Florida and a lot of the Atlantic states are because of the hurricanes that come through. So there's radio communication teams that are active almost all the time, either with storm watching, whether they're skywarn or not, but storm watching and hurricane watching and tornado watching and the like. The emergency managers of those counties will rely on their ARES teams for this kind of extra communication help, which is very, very cool. Here in Sacramento County, you also pick a nice place to live, because generally we don't have that many emergencies here. We don't have that many disasters happening here. We have good infrastructure of roads. We have 2 different power companies, which is great. We have lots of different cell phone towers. We have natural gas companies. We have several water districts, right? So a disaster at any one of those doesn't knock out the entire county. What we do get are requests to help other counties more often. So our training and what we do is geared a little bit differently than you might find in Texas or Florida or LA, where the training and the drills of what they do might be more specific in some of the areas that their local counties or local emergency management teams would need to use them in those areas. I was, somebody said they were up by Mount Rainier. I was over on the Oregon coast not too long ago, and really did appreciate the communication challenge there, because you've got mountains in the way. And so a lot of times the emergency manager for a small county is the sheriff. And a lot of times that sheriff will rely on the local ARES teams to help with their radio communication, because the local ARES teams, or the local clubs at least, are running repeaters around the tops of the mountains. And so the infrastructure is already in place for that local sheriff to rely on an ARES team, versus here in Sacramento, where we have superb infrastructure, and they don't necessarily need to rely on us for radio communication on a big level, right? Maybe on smaller levels we do. Let's see. Again, I'm talking quick. Hopefully this is informative. If there are questions, again, please don't be shy. Just go ahead and shout them out. Particularly as we're talking about the similarities and differences with other ARES teams that you might find. Here, let me go back one. There was also a question of how we coordinate with other local ARES teams. That's part of what the district EC is all about. It's kind of like, district manager in a way, to bring the teams together, talk about training needs, talk about maybe doing some drills together. Here in the Central Valley, so far each of our ARES teams has kind of been self-reliant, and we have not necessarily coordinated with each other as much as we probably should. When it hits the fan, we will all get together and be able to interop with each other seamlessly. I am certain of that because of the level of expertise that we have of not just the emergency coordinators of the other counties, but the folks who are ARES teams members of the other counties as well. They're all good operators. And so when we need to, we will be able to drop into action and help across our region without a hiccup. That I am certain of. What we haven't done so much is actually drill together, train together, but we have. And there's an asterisk to that. And that's what the second half of this presentation is going to be about. That's where the section EC, the district EC, make sure that there's open communication with all of the other ARES teams and coordinate to the level that we should be coordinating to help not only our communities, but our neighboring communities. Like I said, Sacramento gets called to help with our neighboring counties much more often than needing to respond to an emergency within our county. And it's not to say that we're hard and fast on the county line. That just happens to be the way we're mostly organized. But there are folks who it doesn't really matter where you live. You could be a member of whatever ARES team feels like they can use you. So remember, the only requirement is you have a valid amateur radio license. There's not even a residency requirement. So, all right. Kind of on the same theme was our served agencies and our memorandums of understanding. And these have been negotiated by ARRL, which is great. I think by far, especially here in Northern California, our biggest served agency is the American Red Cross. So when a disaster happens, or it could be flooding in Wilton, it could be fires in Paradise, it could be snow in El Dorado County, or all three at the same time, American Red Cross will be asked by their local county, maybe even the state, to set up some disaster shelters. And when they do, they need some communication help. So usually the second phone call is to us or whoever the local ARES team is to help drum up some communicators who can go to these shelters and help provide communication support. And so that by far is our number one agency who asks for help. There are other agencies that you see listed here that we have memorandums of understanding with so that we can interact and have professional discord with each other and help each other out when necessary. FEMA's on there. I'll cover FEMA a little bit more here in just a little bit as well. But it's important to know and recognize that there are other teams out there who are also reacting to disasters. Our expertise is going to be in emergency communication. A lot of these other teams will have expertise in other facets, either logistics or just manpower to be able to move things around, transportation if there's food that needs to go back and forth, that kind of thing. So there's lots of expertise here. And when a disaster happens, it really is pretty amazing how quickly all the services can marshal together to help that out. It's really kind of a neat thing to watch. Not the disaster, but when everybody's working together.
Question.
Yes, go ahead.
Is there any interaction with local CERT teams?
Did I not have CERT on here? They should be on here. Yes, kind of when we show up at the same event. Now, if you listen to our ARESnet that we have for Sacramento on Mondays, you'll hear a lot of people say that they're also a member of Folsom CERT or Elk Grove Galt CERT. And it seems to be, we all kind of have the same disease that we're wanting to help and we're wanting to be as prepared as possible to help each other. So there are a lot of CERT team members who are also amateur radio folks who might also happen to be an ARES team member as well. There probably could be more radio training in the CERT curriculum, but how they focus on that is really each one of those departments, right? Folsom kind of has their view of it versus Sac Metro versus Elk Grove Galt. So there could be more interaction there, but when you look out at who volunteers to show up at these events, it's the same people. So sometimes those lines get blurred because we just kind of see all of our friends at each one of these events. Good question, though. I should add CERT to this list. Yeah, for those who don't know, CERT is the Community Emergency Response Team, and it's generally organized by the fire departments. And it teaches you self-resiliency and how to take care of yourself and your neighbors in an emergency. Everything from first aid to how to turn off gases, the gas line to your house, respond to different physical problems and emergencies that can happen in a community, right? To get you through the first 12, 24, 36 or a week, right? If you didn't have any outside help from a government agency, how can you be self-reliant, help your family and your neighbors for a few days before help arrives? That's a big part of their focus. Yeah, go ahead with the question. I think there was one there.
This is KI6RT. I've got a question.
Yeah.
Following along the lines that Carol just asked, one of the issues that we've had in the Bay Area where RCARCS, ARES, OES, and CERT were participating was the issue of liability. Has that been solved? Because if you dispatch a person or activate and there's an issue with liability, that could be a problem, right?
Yeah, it's solved because we have a lot of lawyers, right? It's so you're right. It's liability is a big deal. Rule number one for ARES and other disaster response personnel, rule number one is do not self-deploy. If there's something going on, you don't just grab your go bag and go and insert yourself into that situation. That's a no-no. One, they're not ready for you. They may not know how to use you. And two, they're not responsible for you. So this liability is a big deal. That's why these MOUs are here. And that phone call from the Red Cross, part of what I need to do is understand that liability chain. Is this a request coming from the Red Cross, or is this request coming from Sacramento County through the Red Cross? And so the communication we have to have with Sacramento County, the Office of Emergency Services, is to help establish that liability line. And so that is a big deal. That idea of the registered disaster worker comes into play there as well, so that there's a roster of folks that the county already knows about. And so it does depend on the nature of the activation and where they're sending you to and what they're asking you to do. But yeah, I jest, we can make all the lawyer jokes we want, but that is a very important consideration when it comes to actually responding to a disaster.
Yeah, and that's sort of the dilemma we struggled with quite a bit, because CERT is community local response activation. Because during an earthquake or an area-wide disaster, fire or other services just cannot get to you.
Yeah, and thank you, John. That's what I was trying to hint at with that self-resiliency, self-reliant aspect of it is, in the absence of the fire department even being able to get to you if your neighborhood blew up because it was a gas leak or something. That's mostly what CERT's there for, is to teach you how to be self-reliant for yourself, your family, your neighbors, your community. And there is a big reliance on the Good Samaritan law at that point, right? If you're honestly trying to help your neighbor, right, then the lawyers will leave you alone. Now that's different than if you travel somewhere and insert yourself as part of a team of responders who are already there trying to do their thing. That's different now. They don't know who you are. They don't know your capabilities. They didn't ask for you to be there.
Sure, that requires the DSW card and all that kinds of stuff.
Yeah, even if you show up and say, "Hi, I'm a disaster worker," if they didn't ask you to be there, then you're persona non grata at that point. It's not just that you are a DSW, it's that you've been deployed there. And part of that deploying is establishing the chain of responsibility of who's responsible for you for being out there and working in the position that is in the description of what you've been asked to do, right? So if I go out and I'm providing radio support, but then I decide to, I don't know, go drive the fire truck instead, well, that wasn't my job to drive the fire truck. So my job was to just talk on the radio. So yeah, there's those kind of considerations. Luckily, knock on wood, right? These kind of things don't come up that often, but when you do the tabletop exercises and you start having those that communication and those exercises with the local emergency managers, they're all about the compensation and the liability, right? Because Cal OES or FEMA is going to compensate them for the resources that they're expending to fight whatever emergency they're fighting. And then they're also being backed up on the liability of anybody getting hurt. So those folks, they have to pay attention to that. Yeah. Good questions, John. Thanks. All right. We talked about FEMA a little bit, and there were some questions about training and how we interact with them. So you just heard my little rant about, don't self-deploy, you don't show up, they don't know who you are, they don't know what you can do. Well, yeah, that's a bit of a challenge. When you show up to an incident, everybody's got a role to play. And how do you know what role, right? It's not like the movies where you just show up and somebody's the hero. Everybody's got a role there. And the definition of those has been defined. And this came from California, by the way. This came from, a lot of it came from LA, of having a structure in place for mutual aid with each other when aid is needed. And so FEMA adopted the incident command system. And we'll call that ICS for short. We use that. You'll see ICS referenced even in a lot of the training classes. It's based on the Emergency Management Institute, EMI, also the National Incident Management System, NIMS. And so for our ARES team members, there are some classes we'd like everybody to take. And those classes are offered by FEMA. They're ICS classes. There's an entire catalog of classes from FEMA. The ones for ARES they're all online. They're not even Zoom meetings. You just kind of read stuff and take online tests that are pretty easy to pass. But it teaches you the structure of what the incident command system is, starting with one person, right? If somebody shows up at a fire at a warehouse where you're the incident commander until somebody else comes by who might be more qualified that you can hand off the incident commander role to. And then as that situation gets bigger and bigger, and if the local agency needs help in fighting whatever disaster that is, they can call in for help, and that team gets larger, and then the structure of that team will change and morph to have different roles. You got to think about mobilization, demobilization, resource assignment, logistics of moving things, right? All this stuff when a disaster gets to be a big one that you have to take into account when you're trying to fight this thing. This is also not like the movies, right? Where the local cops are taking care of something and the FBI shows up and takes over. That's not how this actually works on the FEMA side. The local agency is still primarily responsible for fighting whatever disaster they're needing. They're just using the resources of their neighboring counties, of the state, of the federal government, of neighboring states, right? You hear that when we have a big fire, we'll have firefighters come in from other states. And then California will also send firefighters to other states. And even Canada when they had their big fire. And the only way that works is they know what role they're playing and they know how to insert themselves as part of the structure of the team that's already there. So that's what these ICS courses are all about. There are some ARRL ARES courses, and they just changed because we like change. So they've taken some of the names of the courses, they've restructured them a little bit. There's 3 new courses, but the third one's not done yet. And of course, like the day after they announced these new courses is when the, I don't know, are we calling it a hack, Carol? Or the information system problem that ARRL experienced took all the courses offline as well. So that stuff's just now coming back. So there are some ARES online training, and there's also one specifically for emergency coordinators like myself that we take. So that's the book training stuff, is some reading the online stuff and answering some online questions, tests. And you get these cute little certificates that you can print out. And as an ARES team, we collect those certificates, actually have a little database we can put them in. Just so everybody can keep track of what training they've accomplished. like I said, there's a whole catalog of FEMA courses, and many of those courses are very beneficial. And so some folks will go take more than the required ones, just because it's kind of interesting. And maybe you like taking tests. I'm kind of weird that way. Now you can still be, now remember, the only requirement to be a member of ARES was a valid amateur radio license. Having this training is going to be beneficial. And so having that database of the training is what informs me when I do get the call from the Red Cross or maybe Sacramento County or whomever, and they're looking for certain types of folks. Well, I'm going to pick the people who have this kind of training to go there. That way, when they show up, they'll at least have a little bit of an idea of what color vest to wear. I'll show you pictures of that in just a little bit, and what their role is at that spot. That's going to be much different than if there's just a local event that we're trying to cover. So you can still participate in an ARES team if you haven't completed all the training, but the more training that you have completed and that the ARES team knows about, then the more ready you'll be on the list of folks that they can deploy when it comes time that they're asking for somebody to be deployed. That's why there's all that training. All right, so I talked about that asterisk about training or not training. This is my sneaky way of doing extra training. Is we'll have these drills and these events, and so we're, as an ARES team, we're asked to support a lot of events and to support our neighbors through events that I use as practice drills. Some of our more popular big ones are the Great American Triathlon. We just had that last month. That's the what used to be called the Epi's Great Race. We have the Clarksburg Country Run, the Sacramento Century Challenge. That Century Challenge is a 100-mile bike ride. The California International Marathon, probably have all heard that one. And the Pony Express, yeah, the actual real Pony Express. They still do that every year. Each event like this relies on radio communication. And for these events, it's hard for them to fund having their own radio team. And so since this is kind of for the greater good kind of a thing, they'll ask either an ARES team. There's other events in town too that support some of the other events. I think the Sacramento Sheriff Sharp team does the air show out at Mather, for example. I know out there in Yolo County, there's a couple of big bike rides as well. So the local clubs out there, the local ARES team, again, if you squint, it's all the same people anyway, will support those out there. And so we enjoy being part of these big events because it's sneaky training. So speaking of some more training, we train and practice some other things in addition to that book smart, right? The FEMA courses, those ICS classes and the ARRL classes, that's to get you book smart. Well, we also want you to be practical street smart. And so some of the things that we do is encourage you to be net control. That's a very good skill to have. And we've got a good crop of net control folks in our ARES team now. And that kind of ebbs and flows. The team will expand and shrink from time to time. But having that control skills is very important. Tactical call signs, especially for our events. This goes back to some of the technology questions as well. WinLink seems to be the digital communication tool of choice. And for those of you who don't know WinLink, it's essentially email over radio, which is kind of cool. And you can do it over VHF and HF, and there's nice little forms that you can fill out. And when you have to read a long list of stuff, let's say there is a disaster and they have a list of here's all the things that we need to support this, or a list of medications that we need to procure somewhere. Being able to type that out in an email and send it out over your radio is going to be a whole lot better than trying to spell that phonetically over the air. It's going to be faster and more accurate. So WinLink is a good digital choice for that. We work on a lot of VHF operations, of course, because of the repeaters, but try to promote as much HF operations as possible. We really appreciate River City ARCS on your Wednesday night HF net and the roundtables on Saturday, because that's a good way for somebody who, especially the Wednesday night net, because a tech license can get on 10 meters there and operate there. So you can start learning how HF propagation works. Direction finding, we added some direction finding event, which is really a sneaky way to do intentional interference detection. And I've got some pictures of some antennas that we built for that. Of course, regular nets, transceiver programming, right? Different things that we try to help promote the skills, not unlike a club. This is also why sometimes people think ARES is a club, because we do things like this that kind of look like a club. Even if we're not actually structured like a club, we have the same goal and mission, right? Have operators be as efficient and well trained in everything they can do with their transceiver and all the stuff connected to their transceiver as possible, because that just makes them a better operator, and in an emergency could make them an invaluable operator. All right, so all that sneaky training, there's lots of benefits of this. Having a resource net, right? We're used to just kind of a regular net, whether it's a directed net or a roundtable net. But on a deployment, there's actually two nets. You'll have a resource net, which is just the call for, hey, we need radio operators, and have them check in on a certain frequency or repeater to get their instruction of what to do next. That's important, versus the tactical net, which is the net where you're actually doing the thing. So being able to understand a resource net versus a tactical net. Mobile and go bags, right? A lot of these events, all of these events really are outdoors. And so having a mobile rig and go bags and batteries charged is important. Also for events like this picture here, this is the Clarksburg Country Run, which is in November. This particular year, it's foggy. Many years it's foggy and cold. I'm going to deploy you out to a location, right? So this is, this particular run has a half marathon. Those bike rides are 100-mile bike rides. So I'm going to send you way out in the middle of nowhere, which is part of the training, right? So I deploy you out to a remote location. You have to be self-sufficient out there. I'm going to give you a tactical call sign. You'll have to understand the relationship of your tactical call sign with others. You're going to have assigned responsibilities. Again, be self-sufficient, pass the right kind of traffic, pay attention and participate in net control. And then when the event's over, how to do demobilization. All of this stuff sounds like if I send you out on an actual activation to an emergency or disaster somewhere. So we use these events as training to be able to practice the skills and your equipment, kind of in a microcosm of what we might need if you were actually deployed out there. The bike ride is a long event. It's several hours, like 6 hours if we go from beginning to end. Some of these runs, maybe 3 or 4 hours. So they're just small samples of what maybe a 2 or 3 day deployment would look like. But it has all these same features to it and all these same facets, something that you can practice. All right. The rest of these are going to be some pictures. And if a picture sparks a question, feel free to just jump in. And then I'll try to answer some of the leftover questions I haven't answered yet. One was, what's the interaction with our Sacramento County Emergency Operations Center? We're on the list. So this is the EOC. It's this really weird nondescript building on the south end of McClellan. And if you, the middle picture, in the middle of that, in this big checklist of all the stuff that they have to worry about, mobilize and coordinate amateur radio resources and other communication systems as required. We're right there. We're on the list. That picture there on the right is a training exercise that we had at the EOC. And this is where some of those colored vests come in, right? The different roles inside of an EOC will have different vests so that you can tell basically who their boss is. And so things can be organized. And you sit in these pods with others who are have similar responsibilities that you have on your team. And so the EOC lets us use their training room for our meetings, which is fantastic. They will bring us in on some training, like this was one that was in the EOC. And we've also done some training out in the field with them as well. This picture is from the triathlon that we just had last month. This is what a typical race control or event control bullpen would look like, kind of tent city. We were put right next to the American River Bike Patrol. And also the CERT team was just on the other side of us. I got a picture from a previous year that'll have the CERT truck there. And this is pretty common where we all get together and we handle the communication, and the event organizers can overhear everything that's going on, so that everybody's got this nice picture in their head of the current status of the event, where the participants are, where the first participant is, where the last participant is. Are there any medical emergencies out there? Any logistics problems going on? That's very common for an event control setup just like this. There's a good picture of John. John surprised me by bringing out the big display. That was very cool. He's got a pretty efficient generator, so he's able to kind of practice a command center setup, particularly for this event because it wasn't a very long event, which works out pretty well. We normally don't bring out such a big monitor, but it was very cool. It was nice to be able to see the map up there that we could reference at any time for the event. Pictures from, yeah, these are all this year's. Of course, this triathlon is unique that the water portion of the triathlon are kayaks. And so you can see that's not all the kayaks, by the way. That's just was one beach. There's another beach that has more kayaks. You can see a picture of us with the bike patrol folks. The bike patrols did riding around in teams, helping with first aid, but they don't have radios. And so they would check in at each one of our stations to get instructions of, was there something ahead of them or did they need to turn around and go back and look for a participant? And that process worked really well. When you saw that first picture, we were right next to the bike patrol folks. We had a good communication and coordination with them this year. James has got his 705 sitting there that looked like a nice setup. And I gave him the cushy spot on the beach. Of course, the beach at the river is a rocky beach, not a sandy one, but those were the rescue kayaks that were there. And kind of a typical setup down there in the bottom right of you got a pop up in a table. You don't need a pop up in a table, but that's a nice setup because it's nice and visible for all the participants to know who you are and why you're there. And if they need you, what you look like so they can find you. That's really important. Let's see more pictures. Oh, there's a picture of Dave. I do miss Dave already. We worked on some tape measure Yagis for our direction finding event. We also built some Slim Jims out of window line. That's the picture in the top middle. There's Michael. He and I are in the Cal OES rig at the California International Marathon. So we're literally next to the finish line, but we don't get to see anything because we're inside of this rig with, I don't know, it feels like 15 other guys and 100 other radios. So it gets kind of crazy and loud in there, but the marathon's a fun event to work. It's a very technical event, but very good. The bottom left one there, it was training that we did with the county. The county was going to have a live exercise of a levee break down in the Delta. And so the folks down here at Walnut Grove, there's an incident command post that was inside this building. They have a community safety center with police and fire in the same building. And they gave me a heads up, but they didn't tell the participants this, that they were going to pretend that all communication was broken. So in the middle of the event, literally somebody's like in a white lab coat with a check, with a checklist says, okay, all your communications are down. And they couldn't fathom why the communication were down. And so the call came into us. We were parked about a half mile away. I come walking in with my radio and I said, hi, I'm here for your communication. We'll get you up and running. And I had to explain to them that, yes, there are amateur radio folks on a team that are ready to help with radio communication when it's needed. And I said, by the way, you can walk outside and meet the team. And this was the team that was sitting outside. And we had several VHF stations. We also had WindLink running. They were very impressed that there's actually a team they can rely on to do emergency radio communication. Then after about an hour, magically their communications came back and they didn't need us anymore. But it was a fun exercise there. A couple of more pictures of typical setups. Most of our events, you just need an HT, but if you have a tent setup, particularly Larry there, it looks like he's got a coffee bar and food on his tailgate. I'm gonna book myself with a Larry next time. The bottom right is my garage. We were working on those Slim Jim antennas there. Oh yeah, hey, James, check. Here's the Metro Fire Cert truck. This was last year's Great American Triathlon. And we had the CERT folks right next to us there as well. Another good setup, but just HTs will work. There's Sandy there on the left. He has two HTs. One is a backup, and his main one, he's got a remote mic on it so that he can hear and talk very easily. There's Kishore, and you can take the things that you learn in doing mobile deployments like this are extremely important and useful. You can take an HT, and if you have an elevated antenna, you can make your 5 watts sound like 25 watts because you're away from body fade, you're up higher, away from the structures around you. And yeah, we had no problem hearing him. Again, turn 5 watts into 25 watts just by putting something up about 10 feet. That worked out really well. All right. Well, that's right on time. I was aiming for an hour and I think I hit it. I know there are questions because I know I talked too fast to give you time to pop in there. So who has questions? Feel free to just unmute and shout them out.
It's Wilson in 6EMF. Wonderful presentation, but I had a thought towards the end. I was wondering what special considerations do you have for Sacramento in terms of like capabilities around water and floods, rivers and lakes and stuff. We have dams around here. So does your, just out of curiosity, do you have specialized capabilities around those things?
Well, as the ARES team, not necessarily, right? Because we're communication and we're communication over the amateur radio frequencies when extra communication is needed. Now, that could be, they could post us to observe something, right? So if there are creeks that are getting high, they might ask to have an extra pair of eyes. The county might ask this, have an extra pair of eyes to go watch that and report if that creek is overflowing or not. But one thing I've learned, especially that Delta exercise where you saw the pictures down in Walnut Grove, the entire Central Valley has been mapped by the state, by the federal government, of where are the floods going to happen. So like when the Cosumnes River flooded and Wilton was cut off and Highway 99 was covered, they knew that was going to happen. That's on the map. So we don't need those skills as an ARES team, but those elevations and what would happen if this dam broke, what would happen if that levee broke, what would happen if this creek crested above flood stage, those are already mapped out. It's a big reason why there was so much levee work along the river over the last few years by the Army Corps of Engineers, is because after New Orleans, we were the next most vulnerable spot in the country because of the levees. And so now you drive by, they've taken all the trees out, they've widened the levees, they put sluice down in the middle of them, right? They did a lot of refurbishing. So that was a long way to answer. As an ARES radio communication team, we don't need those capabilities, but we know that those in the county and in the state who we're working with, they've got that map, they've got it all figured out. And if they need extra help observing something, they might call on us to go out and report on it.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Jay, could you talk about the importance of learning how to do direction finding?
Yeah, that was so we called it big game hunting. Most of the time when you do fox hunting, right? Some of you are familiar with this. You've got a transmitter in a park and then you're trying to go find it. And sometimes the transmitter, there might be two, a higher powered one, a lower powered one, but you're leaving your QTH and trying to go find something in a park. We did something slightly different. We did what I call big game hunting, which there was no expectation to leave your QTH, but by everybody reporting what they observed and collaborating with each other, tried to figure out where the transmitter was. So I went up to Carpenter Hill, which turned out to be too good of a location. That's the hill as you're going up Highway 50, right there at Folsom with all the antennas on it. There's a reason, because it's the highest point in Sacramento County. And transmitted up there, started at 50 watts, and that was too much. Everybody could hear me. The Bay Area could hear me. Even getting all the way down to like 2 watts, we're still getting very good circuit merit reports from those folks. But the direction finding was as a team, if there's a transmitter and we're trying to figure out what part of town this transmitter is from, think intentional interference, could we marshal ourselves together to figure that out quickly? So we use some of those directional antennas. You saw those tape measure Yagis, but you didn't need a directional antenna. You could also just use a regular vertical and just report observed signal strength, especially as I dropped down the transmit power from 50 down to 2 watts. I think I got as the lowest. And by mapping all that out, we can kind of come to a consensus of where in the county was I? And for some folks, they were able to peg me pretty easily and pretty quickly. For other folks, it was the first time trying to do any kind of direction finding and realizing that the RV across the street reflects the signal really good. So they were 180 degrees off from where I was. John was in his building in Rancho Cordova and realized if he was on the west side of the building, he couldn't hear me as well as on the east side of the building. So I called that office building attenuation, right? So you start learning these things about some of the radio signal strengths, and it was very educational. And we're planning to do another one. And when I do, I'll certainly let you all know, because the more that participate in something like that, the merrier, because we're all sharing our observations together. I get on the repeater, get everybody organized, go over to a simplex frequency, do some transmitting, come back to the repeater so we can all share our observations. And just a couple of rounds of that, you can start narrowing down where that transmission is coming from, or at least, kind of get a what part of town, it was very fun. And it was very educational.
So this is John again from KI6RT.
Mm-hmm.
The tape measure Yagis are great, but we do monthly fox hunts.
Mm-hmm.
You really need an offset attenuator.
Well, hold on. Yes. If you're trying to get close to the source.
Sure, absolutely.
Right. And so that's why in our big game hunting, I wasn't expecting anybody to leave their QTH.
I understand.
But also we did have some instructions on how to detune slightly, right? Go off frequency slightly. Detach your antenna if you need to, right? For attenuation. So there were some suggestions on how to do some attenuation like that. It was educational for everybody. Those who are pros with their directional antennas, they did very good. They were able to do the right attenuation, figure out where it was.
I'd say it took about a year to really get direction finding.
Yeah, absolutely. But the goal of what we were trying to do is, if there's intentional interference going on somewhere, could we, within about 5 or 10 minutes, have enough people make enough observations just to get an idea of, are they in the south area? Are they
No, I understand.
Right. Yeah.
Use that technique as well. A lot of us also have the Kraken.
Yeah, the Kraken's very cool. Somebody with the Kraken had me figured out because they were also listening to the input frequency of the repeater. So they got like extra bonus credit points for having extra time to figure out where I was. Yeah, that worked out really, really good.
On this, Jay, before you go off, there's also a practical part of this too in a real emergency.
Yes, that's true. I keep referencing intentional interference, but if you are a wilderness protocol, if you are camping for fun, if you just happen to be a ways away from a repeater you're trying to reach, learning how to use a directional antenna just to direct your RF and also to pull in the RF with some gain, that's also a good thing to practice. So yes, there are some practical applications of having a directional antenna and knowing how to use it, not just for finding intentional interference.
And search and rescue also.
Search and rescue. Yep. All right. What other questions? These are good.
Jay, this is Dan, KF6HHH.
Hey, Dan. Yeah.
Yeah, you may have covered it. I had to step out just as you started talking about it. What is the connection between SAC ARES and RCARCS? I thought I read somewhere at one time that SAC ARES does have a RCARCS license or something like that.
SAC ARES and RCARCS are different things. ARES and RCARCS are different. If RCARCS gets activated, that is a very bad day, because that means we are suspending the amateur radio service. As an amateur operator, you're not allowed to transmit. Instead, the federal government is going to have predefined stations who are going to communicate on our amateur frequencies for their own purposes. And they are going to ignore you if you try to call them because you're not on the list. So RCARCS and ARES are mentioned in the same breath often. RCARCS has never been activated since it was defined back in the 50s, but it's still on the books. There are still RCARCS officers at all levels of the government, just in case the president ever needs to declare the suspension of the amateur radio service, like they did in World War II.
So SAC ARES does not have a RCARCS type license as part of its group then?
Well, there's no such thing as a RCARCS license. You are registered as a disaster worker, as a RCARCS station with the government agency who might use you. And if they need you, if RCARCS is activated, then they will contact you and you will then have your instructions of what to do. So there's really no such thing as a RCARCS license. Because again, this would be the suspension of normal amateur radio. And instead there would be these other stations that were already pre-registered who would be doing their communication on our frequencies.
Yeah, Jay, there used to be RCARCS license stations, but that they're no longer being issued by the FCC. Again, I forgot.
Yeah, those are so long ago that I doubt anybody here ever had one.
Yeah, it may have been 20 years ago. I saw something, and I just don't remember what it said, but I thought it said that ARES had a RCARCS connection or something. I just couldn't remember what it was.
Yeah, sometimes it's the same people, right? So you could have RCARCS stations who are been registered with whatever government agency they're going to support. It's the same guy, right? Who might also be an ARES team member. So when you say connection, sometimes it's the same people. But if RCARCS ever got activated, it's a very bad day. And it hasn't been used officially since it was defined after World War II. So
hey, Jay, as Neo KL7HQ, I think one of the questions was, as part of the ARES teams that exist today, are there any members who are also recognized as a RCARCS station?
Oh, there might be. That's not something I track. I'm not a RCARCS station. So I just, again, I'm not losing sleep over it because RCARCS hasn't been activated. And I would find it harder and harder for them to do that these days, but it's still on the books. It's still possible. The president can still suspend the amateur radio service whenever the president feels it's necessary to do. I think we just get mentioned in a lot of the same breath because sometimes they are the same people who would be members of both teams. And since we're both related to emergency communication during emergencies and maybe disasters, it's kind of convenient to lump us together. But
so if RCARCS gets activated, SAC ARES is not going to be called either, unless it's something special.
Well, exactly, because if RCARCS is activated, it's the suspension of the amateur radio service, which means none of us are going to be able to communicate, which I would find it hard to actually enforce. Right, with so many amateur radio operators and unlicensed yahoos out there who have amateur radios on the VHF and HF bands. But it's, yeah, like I said, it would be a really bad day if that happened. That means there's something going on in the world that would make it a really bad day.
Let's hope we don't get activated then.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where, well, I'm glad we've got it on the books and there are people ready. Great, but I hope we never need to use it. That's what I mean by a bad day. That means there's something going on in the world that is really disrupting the world. I hope that day doesn't come. That's what I mean by bad day. All right, what else? You guys are asking excellent questions, by the way. All right. Well, if you think of anything else, you can feel free to contact me anytime. I'm on N6NA quite a bit. I'm also on, well, many of the repeaters around. As a team, there's our website, sacramentoares.org. Our net is on Monday nights at 1900. I listed N6 ICW here, but it's also on K6IS at the same time on Mondays. Those two repeaters are linked, so you can use either one. And we're happy to have visitors. You guys can come listen in and check in if you like. And my contact information is also on the website, so feel free to contact me anytime.
Jay, I have one more question.
Sure.
And thank you very much for an excellent presentation. If somebody is listening or watching this and wants to participate, but they're not sure if it's for them, can they join us at one of the events and be a radio operator and check it out, so to speak?
Yeah. So this is for the fictional audience that James is asking about. It. If you're ARES curious and wondering if this might be for you, I'd say give me a call or your local ARES team a call and a chat and talk first to see what ARES is all about and how you might want to participate as a team. I made a big deal about all this disaster stuff, but that's why I showed all the pictures of the drills. Is honestly, we do more drills than disaster stuff. The drills are fun, right? Those events that we do are fun. They do teach us the important skills we need, but we don't have disasters every day. So those drills is what makes it fun. Also, the reminder that the only requirement is to have a valid amateur radio license. So if you're interested, let's say for our team, I'd be happy to have you join. And if you're interested in doing an event, then when there's a sign up for that event, sign up for it. And if you're a newbie, what I'll probably do is put you at either a really easy location or team you up with somebody and have you work an event with an experienced operator so that you kind of get a little bit of Elmer help there of what that particular event is like and what you can do with your HT and what to expect with your setup, whatever the location that you're at, and could certainly use you for those events. If there's a deployment, I'm not going to send you on one of those because you're too new and you haven't been trained and haven't done enough events yet. But that just takes time and training and practice to learn. But if you're ARES curious, check in on the nets, keep an eye on calendars and come to a meeting, talk to the emergency coordinator, and see if you can help out on an event. There are times where if we have a hard time finding enough folks to cover an event, we'll kind of expand the call for help a little bit. And when I do that, I'll make it clear that this is any amateur radio operator can sign up to work an event, whatever that event happens to be. So that would be another way that you can kind of try it out before actually really being a member. You can just participate for that one event, and then we'll have specific instructions about how to do that event too. Not just going to throw you out there without any kind of training. So thanks, James. Thanks for the reminder.
For those who are interested, I did post a number of websites in chat. There's a Sacramento County ARES website, the Sacramento Valley ARES website, report on the big game hunting exercise, which was very interesting. And also a link to the ARES fact sheet, and that is a very useful sheet to have. It pretty much explains a lot what Jay was talking about our serving federal, state, and local agencies and other agencies. And it could be useful when you're interacting with some of your neighbors about your amateur radio activity, showing that you're actually performing a service and not just working like a mad scientist in the laboratory on stuff like the sparks and things like that. So it could be very helpful in explaining what you do to the general public as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Carol. Yeah, those are great. All right. Well, if there's no more questions, then Carol, I'll give this back to you. And again, I invite anybody who has any questions to get a hold of me. Check in on the net, shoot me an email, whatever, and be very happy to talk with you more.
Thank you very much, Jay. And this talk will be on our YouTube channel. And I'll go ahead and I'll put the links also on the under the description on the video that's posted on the YouTube channel. So we have any questions whatsoever for the club before we close the meeting?
Carol, for the September meeting, this is the meeting where we all show off the things we've been working on.
That's right. It's a homebrew night, and especially things that are original or repurposed. We love to have people present their projects, and it's very entertaining. And we do have prizes for the most original and the most recyclable and things like that. It's pretty good. So looking forward to that meeting. That's going to be next month. Don't forget, we have our breakfast meeting this Saturday, 8:30. Everyone's welcome to join us over there at the Brookfields at 4343 Madison Avenue. And tomorrow night, of course, is our net night. Thank you very much, Jay. I'm glad that we were able to accommodate this as a Zoom meeting at the last minute. And again, I apologize for the inconvenience and the last minute change. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the net and our activities and our next meeting.
Nice work, Carol. KP4MD. Thank you. N6EMF. Good night, everybody.
You're welcome.
Good
Good
night,
night.
everybody.
Thank you, Jay.
See you next meeting.
Thanks, Jay.
Very informative, Jay, and thank you, Carol, for organizing.
You're very welcome.